Welcome to this bonus episode of Story District Presents. In Season 1, we brought you a story by Cara Foran about handling the sex talk as a new parent.
Now, when I asked my mother where babies come from, she was folding laundry. It was approximately 1980. And she never looked at me, never missed a beat. She just said, well, when a man loves a woman, God plants a seed while they're sleeping. Number one, that is not true. Number two, they will kick you right out of Feminist Parenting Club if you tell your child that in 2018.
If you haven't heard that story, go back and listen to the Birds and the Bees episode. During our interview, Cara mentioned another story she told on the Story District stage.
I was going through a really horrific breakup, which I talked about. That's my
Sucker for Love.
My Sucker for Love story. And I had been to a couple Story District shows, and I was like blown away. And I remember thinking, like, that little voice, I was like, no, I could do that.
Here's the story about the breakup that drove Cara to try storytelling for the first time.
All throughout my 20s, I thought I didn't really have to worry about love, that it would just happen for me. One day I would meet the right guy and just start hitting all those adulthood landmarks. Love, relationship, wedding, house, kids, couples counseling. But when I met Adam, I was 34 and at the end of a long, long dry spell. At the time, I was living in the last cheap English basement apartment in Mount Pleasant. I had just discovered online dating and I was so relieved. I felt like the internet was the boyfriend catalog I had been looking for. And I was gonna try on every last make and model until I found one that fit. I had a dedicated first date uniform, dress, leggings, boots, scarf, and a dedicated first date spot, the Tonic on Mount Pleasant Street, right by my house. Thank you, yes, R.I.P. Right by my house so that if things were really terrible, as they generally were, at least I was right by my house. But on the off chance that things were really amazing, then we were right by my house. But Adam broke the mold and actually planned our first date, and it lasted 8 hours, which is a crazy long time, especially when you consider that he was wearing a Cosby sweater and had a comb over. We had just left the Phillips collection and gone to Kramer Books to have a drink, and I was still really trying to figure out how the date was going, whether or not I liked him, let alone whether or not he liked me, when out of nowhere, he reached across the table and took my hand, and all of a sudden, I lost the power of speech. I felt like I was holding onto a live electrical wire. And when I looked across the table at him, I swear I heard a choir of angels singing in the distance. I couldn't see the Cosby sweater or the comb over anymore through a haze of pure desire. And from that moment on, I was a goner. Every little thing he did, like kiss me goodbye at Metro in the morning or sending me a little text during the day, made me absolutely weak-kneed. Once, I left my wallet in his car, and he made a ransom note out of words cut out of magazines and pasted together and sent me a picture. Oh, guys. I thought it was the cutest thing that had ever happened in this galaxy. Another time, he was putting a poster frame together for me as I was making dinner, and as he kind of knelt there doing it, I actually became a little bit verklempt. And I had to stop what I was doing, and I walked over to him and put my hand on his shoulder, and I said, Adam, I think this is the most erotic thing I've ever seen. He just smelled so good to me all the time, like we had that pheromone connection, And we had a lot in common, too. We're just the same age, so we both like the same 90s music. We both like bad puns and nerdy humor. We even took the same antidepressant. They say that in every relationship, there's a gardener and a flower, and Adam was definitely a forlorn little flower when I met him, and I just wanted to shower him with my love until he bloomed. I wanted to get my hands all up in his dirt and fluff it. I'm definitely a fixer, and I know fixers get a bad rap, but I didn't want to fix Adam because I thought there was anything wrong with him. In fact, I thought he was pretty perfect. I wanted to fix him because he was unhappy, and I thought that my love could make him happy. That's foreshadowing. For instance, he lived in this terrible apartment way out in Alexandria with nothing on the walls, so I bought him science nerd art to hang up. He had that comb over, so I talked a lot about how hot I think bald guys are until he shaved it, because that thing was a crime against humanity. He had been wearing the same glasses for 10 years, so I helped him pick out a new, hipster pair, and on and on and on. And this list does not even encompass the very, very nice and life-affirming things I did for him in bed. And on that score, at least, he was properly appreciative because, you see, Adam was recently divorced after a long separation from the woman he had been with since the first day of his freshman year of college. And instead of running the other way when I learned that like a sane person would, I thought, jackpot. No one else even knows this guy is out there, and as soon as I heal him up, I'm gonna marry him. You guys, I want you to really hear me when I say this because it is not something I say lightly. I would have moved to Alexandria to be with him. And I don't even mean Old Town, I mean like godforsaken Kingstown, outside the Beltway. But it turns out that asking me for stuff wasn't really Adam's strong suit. Take, for example, the time that I spent months and months helping him study for the bar, every night and every weekend. And when he finally passed, I bought him a present and took him out for a steak dinner to celebrate. Fast forward to but when the time came for him to go to the swearing-in ceremony, I asked him if he wanted me to come, and he said, oh, you know what? It's not really the kind of thing that people attend. Fair enough. Fast forward to 1 week later, when we're having one of our regular conversations about reasons Adam feels sad, and he says, oh, you know, it really hurt my feelings that my sister didn't come to my swearing-in ceremony at the bar. I mean, my parents came, and that was cool, but she really should have come too. And I was fucking enraged. I mean, I'm like, you have a PhD from MIT. Are you really telling me you don't remember that you lied to me about this last week? As I was pinning the monogrammed gold tie pin I bought you onto you? Seriously? But I stuffed that rage down. Indeed, I comforted him because gardeners do not scream at their flowers. They just water them a little bit more and fluff their dirt and wait for those blooms to come. I thought that these little bumps in the road were tests, and that if I could be patient and accepting enough, I could pass the test and win the prize. I thought there was no way the universe would make me wait this long for someone who was smart and sexy and weird in all the same ways I'm weird, and then not let me keep him. But I knew that it was going to be up to me to make the next bold move. I was going to say the thing that needed to be said after nearly 2 years together. It had been bubbling up inside me for so long that saying it out loud was a relief, like confessing your sins to a priest. So one day, I took his face between my hands, and I looked deep into his eyes. Adam, I said, I love you. And he tilted his forehead against me and kissed me and said, oh, thank you. That night, I dreamt that I had a giant anatomically correct heart tattooed on my chest, and that it was so big and red and glistening that I could never hide it no matter what I wore or what I did. And I woke up in tears. Now, as a creative person, I was a little bit upset that my subconscious was so very literal about the whole thing. But you know, the message was pretty undeniable. And all the time that we were together, we never fought. I'm not a fighter, and so when things got rocky, I would just redouble my efforts to be lovable and to make him feel loved. I always believed, truly believed deep in my heart that if I could just find the right combination of lingerie, homemade beef stew, blowjobs, and giving him space, I could you guys are dirty. I could find a way to make all the pieces come together and the ultimate puzzle would be revealed. But the day after our I love you, I thank you conversation, Adam broke up with me. Really? You didn't see that coming? He said that he had really, really tried really, really hard to love me, but he just couldn't. You know, like I was a Billy bookcase from IKEA that he had tried to put together, but ultimately had to toss because he couldn't find the right size Allen wrench. And you know, as grown-ups, we're not supposed to dwell on these breakups like melodramatic teenagers. Old lovers and those whole worlds you create together are just supposed to fade out until no one really mentions them anymore. But losing Adam made me remember why I don't fall in love very often, because it is so terribly, exquisitely painful when it goes wrong. I felt like I couldn't take a deep breath for months after he left me. I mean, my ribcage ached all the time, like my heart had been torn out by the roots. In fact, it was about 2 years before I really started feeling like myself again. I had just bought a house, and maybe even thinking about going on a date again when, out of the blue, one beautiful spring day, I get a notification from LinkedIn that I have a message from Adam. LinkedIn. Because cara.foran@gmail.com is just so fucking hard to remember. It was a breezy, chatty little email too. Hey, how are you? I see you got a new job. Congratulations. How's your sister? Blah, blah, blah. And as I read it, I could not begin to imagine what he could possibly want from me. I mean, we had been totally out of touch since the breakup, and as far as I was concerned, we always would be. So I did something that I never let myself do, and I Googled him. And that's how I learned that, less than a year after we broke up, Adam bought a house in Bloomingdale with another woman. Yep, there they were, him and her and the cherry blossoms and her terrible, terrible bangs. Oh my God. And this was disturbing on a number of levels. Number one, when I met Adam, he could not have found Bloomingdale with a map and a fucking guide. I showed him this entire city. Number two, in his online photos, he was wearing those glasses I helped him pick out, and he also had a new beard, and I didn't really need to see that. And number three, looking at the pictures of his new girlfriend, it's really clear that bad bangs can happen to anyone at any time, and that we have to be constantly on guard. But the more I scrolled through the evidence of his new online life, the more it occurred to me that actually I did know what he wanted from me. He wanted me to garden him. He wanted me to fluff his dirt and give him a little water and let him know that I was okay and tell him that he was not a bad person for breaking my heart and then stealing my idea of a happy life and implementing it with someone else. So I wrote him back. Hey, Adam, I guess it's great that you bought a house with a blatantly vanilla woman that you clearly met 5 minutes after you left me, but I don't really need to know about it, you know? Like, hearing from you doesn't make me happy. It makes me think about all the time I wasted waiting for you to come around while my ovaries were still producing perfectly good eggs. And of all the many, many things I ever wanted to be to you, your LinkedIn pen pal was never on the list, so please don't contact me again. And I haven't heard from him since.
That's it for this bonus episode of Story District Presents. Thank you so much for listening. If you enjoyed this episode, please subscribe, leave a review, tell your friends, and most importantly, keep listening. Visit our website, storydistrict.org, to find pictures and links related to this episode. And while you're there, get tickets to one of our live shows, pitch a story of your own, sign up for a class, or hire our fantastic consulting team for your business or organization. Story District Presents is supported in part by funding from the DC Commission on the Arts and Humanities. Our show is produced by Lizzie Peabody, Ronald Young Jr., Alana Nevins, Nick Hill, Tim St. Clair, and Jackson Bierfeld. I'm Amy Sedman, and this is Story District Presents. We'll see you next time.